Hey everybody, Coldon here with another VOX Immortalis commentary guide. This video is for the normal Warmaster Blackhorn encounter, or gunship if you prefer, the Dragon Soul edition. And of course this is 10-man. So to succeed at this encounter, you're really just trying to prevent the ship that you're on from taking damage. And during the first long phase, it can take damage from the drakes that are flying above, dropping shadowy bombs on it, and from a sapper exploding by running to the cabin in the back. So you want to focus on preventing those two things. And how you do that is you see these onslaught graphics on the ground, these shadowy circles. Anybody that's standing in those will take damage and split it among all players standing in there. But more importantly, that damage is prevented from hitting the ship. And so you want to prevent as much of that damage as possible. To do that, what you can see is we sort of spread our raid out, and we sort of, one of our raid members said zone defense, which is a great description. But essentially, we all just kind of have our own separate area, and so the miniature shadow patches can be soaked by pretty much one person that's full health or two people that aren't full health. But the large patches, everyone in the raid should step in those. It's really important. So if you do that, you'll prevent the majority of the damage to the ship. The other damage dealer is the sapper, as I mentioned. And they don't spawn very often, but when they do, they'll appear near the front of the ship, so to my right, and then they'll immediately vanish for a bit. So there's a sapper now, and then about halfway through, running toward the back, they'll appear again. And they can be stunned and death gripped and all that stuff, so make sure you have ideally a stun rotation set up for them. And then we eventually found that just a couple melee DPS could kill them pretty easily. So the next ads are these ground ads that you see, sort of the two humanoid types. And they're basically just there to be tanked. So each tank picks one up. They also do a charge attack every once in a while. And you can kind of see the graphic on the ground of where they're going to charge to. But ideally, you want to have people spread so that only one person hopefully will take damage from that charge. Just be aware that damage from a big AE and damage from a charge at the same time is pretty deadly. So something to watch for. Then the last ad types are the assault drakes that you see on the side. Every once in a while, the harpoons on the side of the ship will automatically grab those drakes and pull two of them down. And once they're pulled down, they should immediately be killed by a ranged DPS. The assault drakes are the ones that drop the small shadowy orbs. So the faster you can kill some of the drakes, the less damage that the ship will take overall. The large orbs are by Garryona, I think it is. So, yeah. Try to basically prioritize your DPS on the ads that are important. So we went for sappers first, and then assault drakes, and then these sort of larger humanoids. However, that said, if your raid is really good at, say, stepping in the small patches of shadow and preventing it from hitting the ship, then there's no reason that you shouldn't focus the larger humanoids before the drakes, because the charge combination, as I mentioned, is pretty deadly. Anyway, once you kill off all the assault drakes, you'll enter the second phase, which we've just done here. And you can see that we still had a sapper left over, but it didn't really matter. And so when this phase starts, Warmaster Blackhorn will come down, and you need to have a tank pick him up immediately. And then his pet, Garryona, will also start assaulting the ship by laying down these patches of shadow under random ranged or healer players. They shouldn't hit melee unless a ranged or healer stacks in melee. And so they last long enough that you'll have 3 or 4 of them up at any given time. So you sort of want to spread out so that you can prevent damage from the shadow hitting other people. But the other problem is that throughout this phase, Warmaster Blackhorn will use Shockwave. And you can see he's doing it right now. So he faces a random player and then does a conal shockwave attack. And it's actually pretty challenging to dodge in time. To dodge it, you probably have to be really close to him. But the problem is if you're within 10 yards, he will interrupt your casting for 8 seconds if you are a spellcaster when he does his disrupting shout. So there you can see the shockwave went off, and people were dodging out of the way of it. So again, we're just sort of spread around him in a circle, and trying to avoid shockwave and the shadow breath. Now, as soon as his phase starts, I don't think I mentioned, all your ranged DPS should immediately burn down Gariona, because when she takes enough damage, she'll die or fly away, whatever. And then that'll stop the deck from being covered in Shadow Flame, which obviously simplifies things. The other factor is that as Warmaster Blackhorn gets lower in health, his damage output increases for all his abilities. Basically, it's a sort of a vengeance mechanic. So every 1% health that he is down, he will gain 1% extra damage dealt from all his attacks. And so this can, of course, mean Shockwave is an instant kill, as you saw in our Shaman there a second ago. And his Disrupting Shout is even pretty deadly. So something to keep in mind. Anyway, it's kind of a cool fight overall, much better than the original Ice Crown Gunship. And that is Warmaster Blackhorn. So good luck. Thanks for watching.